in bondage. And this thing is not always inherently wrong or sinful. And as a matter of fact, I believe that these things come about by good intentions. But those things are either taken to a certain point too far or not enough, or taken somewhere that it becomes a thing of bondage instead of facilitating something that is conducive to growth. And what I want to talk about is the bondage of tradition. The bondage of tradition, or that can be tradition. Now, once again, like I said, most, if not all, traditions, and we're talking about spiritual, religious traditions, they typically begin in very good faith. And they typically begin to address a particular issue or a particular problem or something. They're there to address something that for whatever reason, for that particular cultural context and time period or whatever, it serves its purpose to facilitate a command. That's typically how traditions go. But over time, things change or something happens where the main purpose of that tradition is either A, lost, or B, it no longer serves it. That's why you have times whenever, I hear this all the time, whenever you have like 30 congregations in one city, they're like, why is there so many? And it's like, oh, we split, like, you know, that's my great-grandfather. He's like, well, why? It's like, I don't know, we split. We're just here now. And that's typically how traditions go. After time, people just like, I don't know, this is just the way we do it. And that's fine. But sometimes the tradition can be muddied as the law itself. Sometimes the tradition can be muddied as the law itself. For example, when we talk about our worship service times. Now, I like 10 o'clock. I like 10 o'clock. I get up. I get up early on Sundays to prepare my mind. But still, I get to get up, have time, I can eat breakfast, whatever. 10 o'clock's great. But that is not in the Bible. We do not have to come here in the morning. We don't have to come here in the morning. We can come at night. And as a matter of fact, I learned this from a brother the other day, that typically, especially even now in Middle Eastern cultures, Sunday is regarded like a Monday for us. And then they would come off of work and then go to do their worship service. And so their services would be done at night typically, or in the evening. And I believe, if I'm thinking correctly, this is a situation with Eutychus, and we get on Eutychus. Oh, Eutychus slept during a sermon, he fell out and he died. Eutychus probably had a long day at work. Who knows? Eutychus probably went to work, worked till 9 to 5, and came and had to do a worship service and had to focus. So he probably was tired. Anyways, the service time, we can do service at 7, we can do service at 7 a.m., doesn't matter. That's just a tradition that we have. It's not the law, it's just something that we do. How many services do we have? That's traditional. I know some people that once 5 o'clock rolls around, and if they're not in the church building, they're uncomfortable. Because they're just so used to doing it. That's just what they've always done. When we think about dress, when my dad he did a mission trip in South America, I believe it was Guyana. And one of the brothers told him, hey, don't bring a tie. Don't bring a tie. That's not what they do there. He gets there and they're like, brother, where's your tie? And so they bought him a tie. My point is, depending on where you go, growing up, even to this day, that's why I like this to this day. To this day, my dad, if I wore jeans to church, it was a no. So to this day, I don't wear jeans to church. But that's me. Baker right there, he's got jeans, he's got the boots. I would never wear this get up. Never. You're not going to see me in it. But that's fine. We're different, and it's really just tradition. That's not the law itself, though. But when we think of tradition, who is typically the group that we think about? The Pharisees. Think about the Pharisees. Now, when we think about the Pharisees, were the Pharisees not the greatest group of people? No. Did they do a lot of things wrong? Yes. Like he mentioned this morning, they knew the law. If anybody should have known better, it was the Pharisees. But sometimes we see the Pharisees doing things, it seems to be out of precaution. Hey, let's just make the line a little bit further back so we don't, make sure that we don't transgress God's law. So we're just going to make another fence so you just make sure you don't go past that. Look over in Mark chapter 7. I think that's kind of what's going on here. And when we think about traditions and how they come about and how they can lead to bondage, this is something that we need to think about. Because oftentimes we will make what we are comfortable with, will make that God's law. And I think that's what Jesus was speaking against partially here. Mark chapter 7, starting in verse number 1. Says, Then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes which came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands oft, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. And when they come from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots, brazen vessels, and of tables. Now, as a little tidbit that I found interesting, this is also reported in Matthew chapter 15. But here in Mark 7, there's a lot more detail with the Jewish culture given here. And I believe this is because the book of Mark was written to a Roman audience, and the book of Matthew was written to a Jewish audience. I'm pretty sure the Jewish audience in Matthew already knew, yeah, that's what they do. But here he gives a little bit more detail. This is what they do. Even when they go to the market, they wash. Before they eat, they wash. They wash the cups, they wash the pots. And if we just read that, what would we say? Kudos to them. I mean, I wash my dishes. I was at a place with these people, and they had animals. And after they would eat, you already know where I'm going with this. After they would eat, they would allow the animals to lick off of the plates, right? And, okay, all right, fine. But then they took that plate and put it on the dryer rack. And said, okay, no, too far. Yes, wash your stuff. That's great. Wash your stuff. And not the dog's mouth. Wash it with soap and with water, running water. I use hot water. We use dishwashers. Clean your stuff. But here, Jesus and particularly his disciples, they didn't do that. They ate their bread without washing their hands first. And it says that they found fault. Now, when it comes to this, who were the majority of the disciples? The majority of the disciples were people from Galilee. When we say they're just country folk, they're just people. They're out there in the sticks. They're fishermen. They probably just take the fish off, put it on the grill, right? No quality control, right? There's no nothing. Just whatever. Just simple country folk. But then you have the religious leaders that they're a little bit more sophisticated. They're in Jerusalem. They're in the city. They're around different kinds of people. So they say, hey, wash. And so they come to Jesus and say, hey, why don't your disciples, it's a little unclean. Why don't they do that? And that's kind of what was going on here. So, quick side note again, look over in Leviticus chapter 15. Leviticus chapter 15. Now, this could be me just making a case, but I think it's kind of important. Leviticus chapter 15, here in this context, these are laws concerning people that are unclean, particularly when they touch things. And this is the procedure that they had to do in order to become clean. Verse number 11. It says, And whosoever he toucheth that hath the issue, and hath not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. Now this was in particular with them touching things that were unclean. So they said, hey, if you touch something unclean, now you're unclean. Wash your hands, wash yourself, just wash everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if the religious leaders here just made a rule, hey, just wash. Everybody just wash. It's good for everybody. It's clean. It's hygienic. Everybody just wash. And they had an issue with Jesus not telling his disciples or instructing his disciples and them not doing that. Which to me tells me that Jesus probably didn't have much regard for the tradition of the elders. Not that he just didn't do it out of rebellion. He was like, God didn't. Just eat bread. And here it seems like his disciples were around Jesus to the point where they didn't have regard for it. They were just eating a meal. They didn't think nothing of it. Just like country folk, they didn't think nothing of it. And they're eating a meal. And it said the Pharisees found fault. Look at the effect. Look at me in verse number 5, back in Mark chapter 7. It says, Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, Why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said unto them, Well hath Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites. As it is written, This people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit, in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things you do. Now this is important. Verse number 7, we see it says, he's quoting from Isaiah chapter 29, we'll go there in just a moment, but it says, In vain do they worship me. Now this word worship comes from the word sebo. This is different than the idea of when we're doing a worship service. It's a little bit different. This worship is the idea of a demonstration of reverence, a demonstration of piety. So it'd be the idea of someone that is fasting for religious purposes. And when we see them fasting, why are you doing it? Well, it's my form of showing my dedication. Typically through ceremonies, through rites, through different things. It's the means of showing reverence and dedication. Now, worship, service is involved in that, but that's not everything. And this is important because he's saying they're doing that, he's quoting from Isaiah, saying they're doing that in vain, meaning it's to no end. And this makes sense because if you're trying to serve or show your dedication to God, wouldn't you think you do it in a way that he had commanded you? And it means nothing, and it doesn't achieve its goal whenever you're trying to show God you're dedicated to him by things that he never commanded. And that's here what he's saying. He's quoting from. Look over in Isaiah chapter 29. It'll have a different word than worship there. Isaiah 29, look at verse number 13. It says, Wherefore the Lord said, For as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me. It says, and their fear, that's the word right there, their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. And so now, the danger here, the effect here, is that these men were causing others to serve God or show reverence to God in a way that he never commanded. And so now you can have it to where you have people thinking, oh, I'm doing this for religious purposes. And you see, okay, where's that in the law? It's like, well, it's not. How is it going to accomplish something if God said that never accomplished that? And that's the danger here. And so when we look at this, sometimes we would say, or, we translate it to today, it's like, well, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I've been told that, talk, hey, what's up with this? Why would we do this? I was like, well, what's the big deal? What is it? And that to me is what's going on here with the washing of pots, washing of hands. Hey, it's a good thing. It's hygienic. You don't want to get sick. You don't want that nasty stuff on you. Just wash. But Jesus says, God never told you to do that. Doesn't mean it's not good. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it in the sense of from a hygiene standpoint. But you're not any closer to God by washing your pots versus not. You're not any more spiritual by washing your hands than not. All that is, Jesus said, all it is just your tradition. And he says you're laying aside the commandments of God and you're teaching instead as commandments the doctrines of men. And that is one side of the danger of tradition, is when we make it to where our tradition, our way of doing things, our preferences become what God says instead of what God says. We'll go more on that in just a little bit, but we have to move on. Look at me in verse number 9. Now he a little bit transitions here. It says, and he said unto them, full well, you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your own tradition. Now he switches over. Now they're going from not just teaching your tradition as a commandment of God, but now they're rejecting the commandment of God by keeping their tradition. And he gives an example. Verse number 10. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother. And whoso curseth father and mother, let him die to death. But ye say, now he's making the opposite, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is Corban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever that might be profited by me, he shall be free. And you suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of God of none effect through your tradition, which ye have delivered, and many such things like you do. Now he's making a transition over to not only are you teaching others that, hey, my tradition, this is the law, but now you're making it to where by keeping your tradition, people start breaking God's law. That's the other side of it. And I have some examples. Let's think about Baptismal Sunday. Baptismal Sunday. This is just something we do. Well, we don't do it, but people, congregations. Baptismal Sunday. Hey, just wait. Just wait. Yeah, the first Sunday right with that Baptismal Sunday. And someone says, well, I won't do this tonight. I see in Acts, if they did it now, that was a commandment of God. I want to do it now. Just wait till Sunday. Just wait till next week. That's a tradition, and by keeping that tradition, you cause people to transgress. You cause people to transgress. What's another one? This one I have seen in the church. Supporting missionaries is good. But supporting missionaries as a replacement for evangelism is not. I've seen many times where, I actually know an individual, in his mind, he's too busy. He works all the time, he's doing his thing. And the way he justifies it, he says, well, I have more to give. As if saying that giving to the missionaries is his form of evangelism. That's not the way that works. And by someone saying, hey, just give, I know you're busy, you're working, just give to me, I'll go do the work. I'll go do it for you. That is not the replacement for evangelism. And by keeping that tradition, you make it to where someone begins to transgress God's law. What's another one? The church building, in many places, has become a replacement for hospitality. Just have it, just go to the building. Just go to the building. And it seems like less and less people come to the house. Come to the house. We also do this sometimes for eating out. Hey, let's just go to the local restaurant. That's not biblical hospitality. That's good. It's not a bad thing. It's great. But that's way different than having someone in the comfort of your home where you are exposed to everything. And whenever you see people's homes, I'm in homes, especially when I live every day. I was in homes every day. I'm in homes consistently. And I've got to the point now, unless someone cleans it out really good, like where it looks like nobody lives there, I can pretty much tell you a lot about an individual just from the first 5 minutes in their home. And if it gets to the point where someone walks in your home and they see something like, I shouldn't have that there. That makes it clear you have to clean some stuff up. Someone goes in your home and they start to see your family interactions. They start to see how organized you are or not, or all those different things. That's very, very intimate. And that's what the Bible teaches us to be, hospitable. And sometimes we say, oh, well, just go to the building. Oh, let's just go to a restaurant. Let's just go. That's just our traditional way of doing things. But if we keep close to that so much where we start to neglect God's commands, our tradition has become, it's become to where we make it to where we transgress God's law. Our tradition is no longer good. It no longer serves its purpose. Here's another one. These are not hypotheticals. The idea of a designated song leader, right? Traditional. Not bad, traditional. But this is where it goes too far. I knew a guy, and in his mind, since he was the designated song leader, I don't do that. I don't do that. I leave singing. That's not. We can sit in a circle and someone just go and just down the line and say, oh, I want to lead this song. Next brother, I want to lead this song. The next brother, I want to lead this song. You don't need a designated song. That's just tradition. That's the way we do things. It makes it convenient. But to make that to where I'm the designated song leader, so, y'all go have a Bible study. Y'all go do that. No, that's not what that is. And so sometimes we made it to where the importance of that tradition, we hold it so high that we no longer have to, quote unquote, do the other things that God has commanded us. And that's not what's being communicated. But because we have our traditions in some places, especially many black congregations, you have that one song leader that can sing, really can sing. They sweep so much stuff under the rug that they do, to the point that brother probably shouldn't even be up there. But it's like, who else is going to lead songs? That's a problem. And that tradition of ours can make it to where we neglect God's commandment. When we go back to the other side, or whenever we make it to where the way we like things and the way we do things, we replace that with the commandments of God, I've seen that a lot too. How many people stay in places, congregation particularly, that they know isn't right, but because their grandfather laid that brick, my grandpappy laid that brick right there and I can't leave. I know some people that they will not won't even touch another Bible translation other than the King James, wide margin, with a large print, with words of Jesus in red, because their grandpappy will turn over in his grave. If they even touch another Bible. What is that? It's just our preference. It's our tradition. And sometimes we make that to where that's the way we do it. No. When we go to other places and we see other things, hey, people do things differently. And let's not make it to where the way we do things and our traditional way of doing things now. Contrast this, quick side point, we talked about in 2 Thessalonians, the tradition passed down to you. The apostles' tradition is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our way and our means of facilitating the commands of God. That's what I'm talking about. Not all biblical tradition is like that. But my point is this. Let's not make it to where the way I like it and the way we do it, if you do anything that is not that, we don't get to this, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. That's what we do sometimes. That's what we do. Consider with me Romans chapter 14. Romans chapter 14, starting in verse number 19. It says, let us therefore follow after the things which make for peace, and the things wherewith one may edify another. For meat destroy not the work of God. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for that man who eateth with offense. It is good neither to eat flesh, nor to drink wine, nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth, or is offended, or is made weak. Hast thou faith? Right here. Hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before God. I am not going to pull up here in jeans and boots and a button up, baby blue button up with a brown belt. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go to the baker and say, what are you doing? Wear some slacks with tweed. I'm not going to do that. That's my personal conviction. That's the way that I was raised. That's the way I do things. It's not wrong. No issue with that. There's nothing wrong with what he's wearing. Have it to yourself before God. Happy is he that condemneth not himself in that thing which he allowed. But he that doubteth is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith. Whatsoever is not of faith is sin. Now, I'm not saying it's sinful for me to come here, but what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to pull up in those jeans and boots. I'm not going to do it. If I do that, y'all, what are you doing? It wouldn't even look right. My point is this. There are some things that, hey, that's the way they do things. And if it does not transgress God's law, leave them alone. Leave them alone. If they're still facilitating the commands, whether they sing 5 songs, or whether they sing 1. We were at a congregation in the Austin area a few years ago. And the brother went to say the prayer. And that prayer was long. Brother went into detail about each individual that was on the prayer list. I mean, the brother was thorough. Long prayer. I don't even know how long it was, but it was long. I'm not going to be, I shouldn't, you have to pray that long. That's just the way they pray. And that's fine. Same congregation. They had, I don't know what it was called, but basically a song that lets all the late people in. And they just sang the same song. Just like the chorus over and over again. I mean, we were singing for a while. And some people were late. I'm talking about like 20, 30 minutes. They were late. But that's just the way they do things. But some places you go, when we were in College Station, I mean, the brother would start 2 minutes before. Everybody quiet. 2 minutes before. We got to start. Start on time. Some places, they don't start on time. And that's okay. It's all right. People do things different. My point here is let's not shackle others, and let's not shackle ourselves with tradition. We all have our own tradition. We all have our own way of doing things. We all have it. But if it's a time where we need to be flexible, let's be flexible. We're not going to compromise God's word. We're not going to do something that is wrong. But we're going to say, hey, it's going to accomplish the same thing. We're just doing it differently. Hey, we need to accommodate a brother, which I really wish this happened more. If a brother gets off work at 6, just move the service back an hour. It'll be okay. It'll be all right. If a person needs to be accommodated to go earlier, and they're like, hey, can we do it? Yeah, let's just go earlier. It's fun. It's all right. But sometimes we know 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6:30. That's what it has to be. That's how it's always been since I started this congregation. That's how it's going to be till I die. We shouldn't have that attitude, brother. We should not have that attitude. And the amount of surprise I get, and y'all probably get it too, whenever I tell people, yeah, we meet homes. It's like, it was at Boston Fest. This lady was like, oh, yeah, we meet homes. She was like, I could tell in her face, she's like, she's never computed that. Like, that's possible? It's a thing? Well, yeah, that's the way they did it in Acts. And because it's not a large building with a big stage, it's just, how can you have church without those things? Well, that's just the way they did it. That's the way they did it. And how many people, if they knew, hey, you just need what, 2, 3, maybe 4 families? You don't like where you're at? Hey, just, you don't. Well, what are we going to, that'll all get figured out, but figure it out. You can do it, and we can do it. And if we need to ever change our tradition for the sake of another brother, let's have the willingness to do that. That's my encouragement. The community thing coming out of the same.